Which modeling language should you choose for your business processes? BPMN, EPC, or YAWL? Hi, my name is Andreas Hense and I make videos on business process automation. Today I'll talk about the question, which of these three modeling languages should you use? Business process model annotation, event-driven process chains, or yet another workflow language? Well, let's start with event-driven process chains. Event-driven process chains have been invented in the 1990s, and they were made for modeling business processes. And the idea of using them also for automation came much, much later in history. So EPCs have their strong point in the domain of pure business process modeling. The control flow language is very simple. It consists of two elements, events and functions. And events correspond to places in Petri nets, and functions correspond to transitions in Petri nets. And we have three different operators for the control flow. There's an XOR, an OR, and an AND. And then you have the extended event-driven process chains, where you can add all kinds of elements, organizational elements, data elements, and machines, and many other things. And the event-driven process chains, they're at the same time at the core of a whole methodology for modeling enterprise architectures. And with tool sets like the RS toolset, you can model your event-driven process chains and then generate swim lanes from these models and all kinds of other models and analysis. And so event-driven process chains are a very good choice when you only want to model business processes and are not so much concerned about automation of business processes. BPMN, on the other hand, has been developed in the early 2000s as an effort to standardize existing workflow management systems at the time. And BPMN has, let's say, the same elements as EPCs, but in addition has a large number of different events. And in BPMN it's possible not only to model a simple business process, but you can also model your decision points. For example, if you have an XOR split, you can make a difference between the situation where the workflow system, for example, takes a decision based on data, or the environment takes the decision based on timers or messages that come in. And so BPMN is much more complex, has much more possibilities than EPCs. And depending on the subset you use from BPMN, it may be harder to understand for your, let's say, purely functional subject matter experts who are not interested so much in automation. But you can use it. The idea of BPMN is to serve as a bridge between technology, business process automation, and business processes. So instead of having several models for the same business process, just to have one model. And this is something that many organizations still are trying to achieve. It's not easy to achieve that even with BPMN, but I think BPMN is a very good candidate here. And if we talk about, let's say, YAWL now, YAWL is primarily a workflow management system for automating business processes. So it has a very clear semantics and it has this YAWL implementation. And It's also possible now, since a certain time, to model your resources with YAWL, and they will be expressed with colors. So it's a different way of representing resources. EPCs represents them as additional elements attached to functions, and BPMN uses swim lanes to express resources. So YAWL has let's say a novel approach here. YAWL doesn't have all these possibilities of BPMN, all these different events. So from this point of view, for what can be represented graphically, it's more or less similar to EPCs, but it cannot express data elements and other additional elements. So it is, let's say, the smallest language of the three. Nevertheless, you can, if you want, if you choose YAWL as a workflow management system, you can do all your modeling in YAWL. You don't have to use another system like BPMN, for example. So summing up, it can be said that on the spectrum of pure modeling, I would recommend using EPCs or BPMN. If you are in the middle, if you want to do both, but then BPMN is the best candidate from my point of view. And if you are on the automation side of things, you can use BPMN, and there are many BPMN compliant workflow management tools. So then you would just have one BPMN diagram for everything. And only if you want to use YAWL itself as a workflow management system, then I would recommend using YAWL and not another language on top of that. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching this. If you are interested, leave me a comment or questions below, and I'd be happy to answer them. See you next time.